Hello, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on our third day here at Industry Insights. Today we have Fraser. Thank you so much for coming on for a lovely little extra view on the analysis and casting point of view, especially regionally, because you've been from the UK to Benelux and all over the place. It's just
Yeah,
been amazing to do. And yeah, talk us about how you initially got into it.
well, Peak, I initially started out casting for CCSW. I was working as an analyst for one of the teams, and I got brought on by Rob Walker, the creator of CCS, and it was an incredible experience. I thoroughly loved it. It was a bit complicated, especially when you consider that the way that you operate as a caster and the way that you analyze things, it has to be entertaining. It kind of has to flow alongside the game, which is completely different to when you're just working as a regular analyst. You're just writing it down in spreadsheets, Google Docs. But yeah, I had a fantastic time with that. I then moved over, did some Challenger League qualifiers with HAP. I did the Benelux League Season 5 qualifiers with Fastan, and eventually I kind of wound up over here doing UCAN 2.
I mean, yeah, and it was, I think, one of the big things, especially from like my point of view, looking at
Yeah,
how you grew, especially, was just even if like just little additions, little add-ons, even like
yeah,
the Benelux bi-weekly cups was
yeah.
how was that going straight into it?
So I mean, initially I started out, I was doing like one or two casts per week, and it was good. I enjoyed it, but I felt like I wasn't developing at the pace that I wanted.
Hmm.
So the way I kind of worked around that was I started looking around. I looked at different opportunities to cast. I started doing things such as ESA, ATS, Esports Wales, Esports Scotland, Benelux. A massive thing for me. I've got a lot of friends within the Benelux
Hmm.
community, and they really kind of pushed me towards like the Benelux community, and I started casting with them. First couple of casts were horrendous. I was trying to do all of it by myself. So I ended up bringing on, like an
Hmm.
observer, producer, co-caster, and over the space of I think 6 months, we did 14 out of 16 Benelux community events. So that
Hmm.
was like JBL Cup, Benelux Biweekly, the Benelux Cup itself, and I think over that, I learned a lot from it, especially because it kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone. I was casting teams that I might not have been too familiar with. I was casting with a German co-caster, so that was interesting to start out with, and kind of learning kind of to work together
Hmm.
with other people. And I think it really benefited me in the long term, being able to experience the different kinds of flow of how teams play. Like when you compare UK teams over
Yeah.
to like Benelux teams, it can be very different and it can vary wildly. So I learned a lot from it, and I think it definitely benefited me in the long term, kind of going out there, trying some different things and seeing what I enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole idea of not being kind of just stuck in your own bubble, being because
Yeah,
that's what some people are afraid of, being like, yeah, I can do this. I'll do
yeah,
this small community Discord league, and then
yeah,
I don't want to reach too far, and that's how you kind of grow, I guess, is
yeah.
to really push yourself. And like you were saying before about just asking for feedback and asking for ways you can improve for people who are
Yeah.
experienced in the field.
Yeah, I mean, exactly as you mentioned that when you're starting out for the first time, you're looking at it like, okay, how can I possibly get into this? How could I possibly look at what I'm doing and improve it? How can I be at like, the higher tiers? So what I did was I took it quite literally. I went around and I asked people, hey, what am I doing wrong here? What am I doing right? How do you look at that? What do you see when you look at this? I went around to so many different people. From the Benelux casters, I got advice from Tordismo, from Anthox, Hap, all of like the regional national casters from that side. And then I went over to the UK casters. I was like, hey, Ace, how's it going? How you doing? You got any advice for me? And I went around to all of these different people and I asked them, hey, is there anything that you feel like I am lacking in or that I could potentially work on and improve?
Hmm.
Um, and it was exhausting. It generally was. It was very tiring going around. But at the end of the day, I truly don't believe I'd be in the position that I am right now if it wasn't for the support and the trust and the confidence that so many people, even like people like Desichu,
Yeah.
who took time out of their day to look over some of my VODs, look at what I'm doing, and give some feedback, some input. I even remember Veli. one of the the NA casters, one of the analysts and desk hosts over there across the pond. He gave me a pep talk. He gave me a little pep talk before UCAN finals, and honestly, I probably couldn't have done it without him.
Mm. It is just that small little boost that you need, and no, I feel like no matter what industry you're in, there's always going to be kind of doubts, and sometimes you can't just go out by yourself and just be like, I can review my own VODs. Yeah, I think I did that right, but people who are experienced in the field can tell you the in between.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those where it's only human to have kind of some of these self-doubts at times, and I think it's being able to work past that and recognize, okay, I'm not feeling confident about this, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing your own strength and saying, hey, even if I don't feel like this is doable right now, you need to try it, because if you don't try it, you don't know what you're capable of. If you constantly feel like you are incapable of something, you need to fix that. And whether it is by, exposing yourselves to new experiences, whether it is, finding some workarounds, such as, doing it in a certain way or with certain people that you feel more comfortable with, over time, just try and work on it, and it does get better. And I mean, for myself, like, I look at it like, I've done so much casting over the last year. I wouldn't be in the position I'm in right now if I didn't start, all the way back last year.
Yeah.
And if I could go and cast and I can, talk a little bit about the teams, if I can, have a nice time and have a fun time last week, then why can't I do it today? Why can't I do it next week? At the end of the day, the size shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter whether you're casting in front of 5 people or 5,000 people. If you are having a genuinely good time, if you are enjoying what you're doing, you get into the flow of it, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole idea of just the more effort that goes into the webcasters, and it's what we've touched upon with almost every person we've had on so far. Of just like, and that's what we're trying to do this week, is that you don't just get home, sit in front of your computer and just talk over the game. There is a lot more prep, a lot more effort that goes into it.
Yeah. I think that's the good thing about it, though, is if you can sit here and, if I've got notes on how they played before, if I have, previous kind of history for the teams, I know how they like to play, what they like to do, any players that generally pop off, any special notes about, hey, maybe this is, maybe this is their rematch. Maybe they played a couple of weeks back. It didn't go the way of one of these teams. So potentially they're going to try and get that rematch and absolutely dominate and eviscerate. And maybe they'll do that. But you don't know that unless you've done your research into the teams. If you can sit here and feel confident with what you're saying, it's going to translate on the cast. And I think one of the biggest things that sets apart, decent casters with brilliant casters is having that confidence to say what you want to say and know that what you're saying is correct. I wouldn't want to go out there and be like, I wouldn't want to be that person that's like, oh, this player is terrible. They're not having a good game. And then it turns out that that player has been top fragging the entire season, right? Or going out and saying, oh, this team's rubbish. They don't know what they're doing. And then it turns out they're number one on the leaderboard. Like, being able to reflect what the teams are doing and what you're seeing, I think, is a very important responsibility. As a caster, you've got to remember that people are going to take what you say as an absolute. And if you're representing these teams badly, that's not fair on the teams, but that's also not fair on yourself. Don't do yourself a disservice by going into it kind of half-assed. Take pride in what you're doing, take pride in your work, and people are going to recognize that.
Yeah, and I mean, you are representing, because that's what a lot of people just kind of don't understand as well, is that when you're watching a team, I mean, more than half the viewership wouldn't be there if the casters weren't there. And of that, you'd just be watching just an overview. And
so, I mean, take it like this, okay? If you've got 5,000 viewers in a stream, okay, how many of those 5,000 viewers are competitive players? 50, 60, maybe? Let's take it at that. How many of them have watched esports before? Let's say 3,000, maybe 2,000, 3,000. which means that you've still got like 2,000 viewers in there that might not have watched esports before. Maybe they've never really seen this before. They have no idea about the teams. They have no idea what some of the players are doing. As a caster, you have to look at it, and this is advice that I got from Tim Ace of Pyrite, one of the UK casters that's now doing LATAM,
Hmm.
is look at the audience that are watching you and think about how you can best explain and describe the game to them. You're looking at some people that they might absolutely adore this game, and over time they'll gain that experience and that knowledge about it. But you kind of have to hold their hand with it and make sure that they understand what is going on, because Siege is an incredibly complex game.
Yes.
And the learning curve behind it can be immense. So if you're able to kind of support that and not lecture people, but educate them, and if you can teach a viewer one thing that they will remember, is it not worthwhile doing that? I think that's one of the best things that we could do as a caster, is to help uplift other people without being patronizing about it. Recognizing, hey, we've all got our strengths and our weaknesses. My strength happens to be that I'm autistic and I like video games and esports. So if I'm able to support other people by giving some of this information out and some knowledge, I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, and 100% agree with that. It's any kind of thing that you can provide, because it can be hard sometimes for new players. I remember when I started, some of the things you just like, I'm not gonna know how to bandit trick straight away. I'm not gonna know how to do this. I don't know which walls to reinforce, for example. And it can be little things like that like you can build on that make it more interesting, make it more enjoyable. And you can't expect people to go through hundreds of YouTube videos on how to do this and how to do that. And just having that presence within an esports broadcast can just be so much.
I remember my very first death. I played Siege back in the beta, in the closed beta. I ended up, my first death was because I tried to hot breach. I got told how to hot breach by someone. I got the timing wrong. I ended up going face first into a breaching charge. I died. It was terrible. But this is one of the most enjoyable things about Siege, is just how engaging it can be and how variable it can be. When you look at the dynamics involved with the game, the different utility and the gadgets, the operators, the maps, you've got some floors that are indestructible, some that are destructible. And the different ways to utilize all of these different things into the game to make it work to your advantage is amazing. Like, I'm going to ask you a question here, and kind of flip the tables here. Can you name another game that has the same amount of complexity as Siege within an FPS?
I don't really think I can name one, because it's like we had like Doki the other day say, it's not an FPS, it's a MOBA with an FPS feature, because it's every little thing is so complex. You've got counters to everything. You've got different ways, and the thing is, that's what I love about when new maps are introduced into the competitive map pool. It's you played it in ranked, you played it in scrims, and then you see the whole map get flipped upside down. You have an angle you never knew was there. It's like, why are they doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's then the casters then able to build on that, and that's the beauty of it. Like when Oregon was first introduced, we all thought like basement was going to be the primary site, but now it's up in dorms. And
you look kids' dorms, kitchen, dining are bomb sites that so many teams adore, and it's for the versatility of them. I mean, if we're looking at kitchen dining, there's so many different ways you can hold that bomb site. You can hold vertically, from inside of on kitchen dining. You can hold upstairs inside of kids. You can open it up. You can put castle barricades up there, and then you can hold the door into dining, right? Maybe you want to extend and expand into into showers with a mirror setup. There's so many different ways that you can play here, and that's what we love about it. And that's one of the things that I think Ubisoft has done so well, is integrating all of these individual components of the game, and it makes it work magnificently. When you look at the operators, you look at what gadgets and utility they can bring in. As you mentioned with the maps, how wildly they can play. And when you add all of that together, add in a couple of absolute gunners from the UK community, then it's definitely going to be a spectacle to watch.
And it always is. You always
Yeah.
see a brand new team just come in and like when, for example, when we first saw Empire, I don't think
Yes.
we have ever seen Siege flip on its head just like it, because everyone was like, yeah. Or for example, let's go before we go into that. Let's go all the way back to season 1. Every pro will tell you, yeah, we just turned up on game day and we played like it was ranked. And I can't remember what team it was that had the first strategies. And then everything changed. And then we had Team Empire come in. You had some absolute gunners, like when Joystick first came in, just that youth, that passion that you've never seen before. Mix that in with unbelievable strats, unbelievable coordination, and that just ends in just total domination.
Now, one of the things I love so much about Empire, and I will always respect them for, is when they initially came onto the scene and came onto like the the higher competitive scene. What you noticed from them was that they had solid strats. They knew how they wanted to operate, but it was more than that. You could tell how smooth and efficient they were, and when you're looking at it, you could tell they had scrimmed and stratted it countless times before they ever executed it on an actual live competitive match. And having that kind of proficiency was something that a lot of teams just didn't have at that time. You look at a lot of EU teams and, generally stereotypically speaking here, EU teams tend to be the more strat heavy ones compared to, NA, APAC, and, LATAM, all of these different regions. EU teams generally tend to be the ones that are more focused and favored towards having these strats. Empire took an entirely new level. You look at how they played, and you could tell they knew exactly how they wanted to play in step 1, step 2, step 3. And I think it really changed up the way that a lot of teams looked at it. You look at G2 as an example, a team that's, at the time was rather infamous for taking what other teams were doing and adapting to it on the fly. You could see, and I don't know whether you watched during the 2019 Invitational, I believe it was, on that longest match ever. It was G2 versus Empire.
Coastline.
They adapt, like both of the teams were just adapting to each other mid-game. And it was like Empire would run around and then G2 would instantly adapt to it and they would win around, and then vice versa. And it carried on and on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. In my honest opinion, that was one of my favorite matches ever. It was also one of the longest matches ever, but it was superb.
It was, and that's the whole point of just, especially coming from, other casters' points of views. Like, you have to know how to react to that. You have to know, you've got to be ready for a shake-up. You've got to be ready for some new stuff to come out, and it's your responsibility to keep going over it. You've got to you got to extend your excitement into your casting to make sure other people know what's happening, so they're interested. And it makes for a whole new kind of atmosphere.
I think you've hit it perfectly there when you're looking at it. Casters really are going to be at the forefront, and it's the same as content creators. When you look at these new patches coming out, if they're on the live servers, these casters need to make sure that they are fully aware of all of the different changes that are affecting their game. You look at, some of the changes that are coming in on the TTS.
Yeah.
You look at, say, for example, how some of the utility has changed. And, okay, it might just be, say, for example, a deployable shield being removed from, Wamai or Valkyrie. To a casual player, that doesn't really mean too much because it's just an item, right? To a caster, that's going to change a lot. I'm going to be looking at that and saying, okay, in all likelihood, you're going to be seeing a reduction in the pick rate of operators like Valkyrie with deployable shields. Usually see with C4s anyway, but some strats rely on having multiple shields, like Wamai. So what that might mean is maybe they might not pick up, the Valkyrie in favor of an Alibi who might still have a deployable shield. Maybe instead of relying on certain operators to bring X utility, they're going to have to bring other ones, and that's going to completely shake up an entire lineup. If your strat is reliant on having deployable shields, then the operators that you used to be able to trust to have them won't have them anymore.
Yeah.
And that means that the way the game is going to play out will be entirely different.
And I guess, yeah, like you're saying, that's kind of your responsibility to get on top of that. And even if there's a little slip up in a cast of maybe not knowing something, but I think this patch we have now is going to change an awful lot. It's that I feel there's going to be a big shake up in the meta, and that's casters have got to be ready for that.
I think the way I look at it is you have to remember competitive integrity is absolutely crucial. If you are, bringing in a caster or somebody to represent tier 1 as an example, so that the higher kind of the highest echelons of our esports scene, they really need to know their stuff. If they don't, then it's going to look bad. On the other hand, if you're starting out for the first time, it's a lot more acceptable to not be as aware. But at the same time, I think it's something that you always kind of want to work with. Like, I personally, and again, this is all my own personal opinion here, I really wouldn't feel comfortable going into a stream or going into a cast if I didn't know what I was talking about. I wouldn't feel comfortable sitting there in front of people going, "Hi, I'm an expert here. I'm an analyst, but I don't know what I'm talking about." I would hate that. But to be fair, that's a personal opinion. That's me looking at myself and saying, I don't want to put myself in that position because I don't want to look bad in front of other people.
Yeah.
I know that there's other casters out there who may be casting a variety of different games. There's so many esports out there nowadays. You're looking at League of Legends, Dota 2, Rainbow Six Siege, CSGO, Farming Simulator. There's so many different things out there that it can be really hard if you're trying to branch out and be a jack of all trades for all of these. It can be really hard to have that working knowledge of everything. I'm very lucky here. I'm kind of known. I'm kind of a one-trick pony here. I'm an analyst for Siege. I talk. That's about it.
And going kind of back to how you first got into it, I mean, like we were talking about before, who do you think, if you had to name one or two color casters or play-by-play casters who really had an effect on you to want to get into this?
Only one or two? That's going to be really difficult here.
We can branch out to 3 if you got more.
Can we add like a 0 on there so it's 30? I'll be honest, looking at it, I initially started casting, and I believe my second cast was with Ace of Pyrite. And I learned a lot from him. I learned kind of how I wanted to kind of progress my casting. I felt like, okay, working with him, I realized that I really did prefer doing color casting and kind of a lot more of the analysis more than I did with the play-by-play. So I kind of pushed myself over to that side. Starting to cast with people like Jess. I work with Jess Bolden, Jess Goat, for Red Bull Sphere Wars, and she kind of introduced me to the concept of hybrid casting. I worked with Hap, and I did more, color casting and analysis. And then people like Veli kind of took me under his wing, was like, hey, you know what? You're great with this analysis. Let's try and push that a little bit more, dude. Let's try and get you focused on that because that's what we want people to know you for. There's so many different casters out there. I want to be my own unique person. I want to be my own caster, right? I don't want to be the new Kexer and Terrell because they're their own people. I want to be me. And for me to do that, I've also kind of looked elsewhere. I looked at Lauren Scott, from CS:GO Pansy, and I've looked at her cast and I've gone, hey, that's a nice style. I like it. It's very charismatic, very entertaining and intelligent, and I would like to be able to introduce some of those elements and influences into Siege. There's so many opportunities with this game. So I guess just kind of looking at what all of the other casters have done and recognizing that's cool. I want to be like that, but I want to be my own person. I think the last thing that you'd ever want to do would be try and just imitate and emulate other people, because why would you want to do that if the kind of end game for you is being known as someone else? Is that really worthwhile? Like, trust in what you're doing and feel like what you're doing is important. Having that self-worth is massive, I think, for a lot of people, and it's something that I think a lot of new casters do struggle with. And I think, especially starting out for the first time, if you're looking at what other people are doing and you're copying it too hard, you're not being fair on yourself. Be yourself. Like, that's what people are going to fall in love with, is you as a person, right?
Yeah, and I mean, with the amount of like is experience and amount of people that you've worked with, what would you say would be some of your most favored memories in the as a caster?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'll be honest, I think my best casts probably stand out the most. So experiences such as doing my very first Changery qualifier. I did it with Hap. And I remember that because it was the first time I'd ever casted in front of such a huge audience. It was my first time casting a tier 2 team. Yukon finals. I remember that. It was my first time ever doing an analyst desk. And being able to sit there and I'm representing a tier 1 team. I was casting out Navi. I was given analysis about Navi. And it was such an incredible kind of surreal experience there, because I'm looking at all of these people. I'm looking at the casters I was working with, such as Fluke and X. I was looking at them and going, I look at these people and I admire them. I want to be like them. And now here I am sitting on a desk with them, equal to them. I struggle to put that into words. I genuinely do. I think any opportunity to work with new people that I've known for so long and sitting there going, trying not to kind of fanboy my way out there. It was incredible.
Yeah, and it's kind of that kick that that a lot of people have in the industry of just, I'm going to go from something which I'm comfortable with and people that I know and we're mates, and then you're like, no. So you're being put on the cast time with this person, and you're kind of looking up, sorry, what? And then it's that next stage of professionalism, of you've got to kind of put that on the side, and we're here to do something. We're here to do the best we can, and especially with that added pressure of, for example, casting over like higher up tier teams.
Yep.
And that's a kind of, in my opinion, what kind of rounds out to just becoming a better caster, of being able to put a lot of things on the back step and remaining the same in a high pressure environment.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed for myself that when I first started out casting, I used to have panic attacks at the thought of casting, and I was so worried about screwing up and making mistakes that it was really affecting me. And now I look at where I am now and I realize, hey, I just casted in front of 6,000 people. Not a problem. I feel great. And it's such a weird kind of feeling, I guess, knowing that I used to get more nervous about casting in front of 10 people than I do nowadays in front of thousands. And whether or not that's something that just comes from experience or over time, I think for different people, I think it definitely kind of manifests in different ways. Like, I wouldn't say I ever go into a cast, kind of fully relaxed. I think I always do kind of feel that apprehension. But I think nowadays I've been able to work that into being a positive thing. I look at it now as if, okay, I need to make sure that I get this right because I want to improve. I'm not worried about making mistakes anymore. I'm worried about not doing enough. And I think it could be misconstrued as being a bad thing, but the way I look at it is, if I wasn't nervous, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
If I wasn't concerned about it, and if I wasn't trying to put as much energy and effort in, then why am I doing it, right? I think nothing worth doing is ever easy, right?
And it's like you said, it's never really easy. And it's the same thing I asked Des when it came to casting of, what would you say? Because with every job, there's some kind of drawback, some kind of, not barrier, but something that kind of hold you back. What would you say that would be, for example, with you in Siege?
I think, I'm being entirely honest about it, I feel like sometimes there is a bit of politics behind it. Again, I'm not going to call anyone out about that. I do feel like at times there is a fair amount of politics behind it, and it's the same as any
Mm.
kind of work environment, in that you need to remember that it is a competitive environment, and that people are usually going to want to, try and succeed as best as they can, and everyone wants to achieve. Everyone has their own goals and ambitions, and I think it's about recognizing that and learning to work together, in an environment where I think a lot of people can be very hungry for success,
Mm.
right? Um, and I notice that for myself. I'll be honest, I struggle with social communication a lot.
Mm.
Um, Unfortunate realities of the Spudgers. It's ironic actually that I'm working
Mm.
in a job where social communication is kind of like the main thing, and I have a Spudger syndrome, and
Mm.
it's I love that. But anyway, um, I think for me, the fact that I do struggle sometimes recognizing things such as, social cues, recognizing, if someone's being literal, if someone's making a joke, it does kind of hold me back a lot. And I think sometimes feeling isolated from the community and feeling isolated from your coworkers, I think is a very real thing. As especially right now with things such as COVID going on,
Mm.
we're working online, and it can feel very isolating and very alone, even if you feel like, or even if it looks like you have so many friends out there, so many people in the community that like you, but it can still feel really lonely. And I
Mm.
think a lot of people do struggle with that. Um, we all have our own issues and our own difficulties, and unfortunately um, for me, it definitely would be kind of like that social
Mm.
aspect, and I think that's something that people just don't recognize, and I think that kind of hurts a lot. For other people, it's, some people look at it and they feel like, it's a big workload. There's a lot to do, a lot of prep work, and it can be a lot of stress being on camera all the time. Feeling like you need to look better, you need to be better, you need to be a better person on camera. That could be quite difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know.
And
I
like,
mean, what
sorry.
about yourself? I mean, kind of sitting here right now, having this interview, do you have any thoughts on that? Like what would you feel about this?
I mean, it's I kind of have the same thing, especially
Okay.
it's when it comes to when I started casting,
Yeah.
it was small things like I was talking about like Discord leagues, and then
Yeah.
I think my first real break into it would have been if you I think pretty sure you've heard of Maze.
Yep, I have.
Yeah. And it got to the point where I was putting a lot of work into it, and I kept being kind of left on my own because 30 minutes for a cast or whatever it would just
Yeah.
be, yeah. and as much as sometimes I wish that we would cast together, he did open up a lot of opportunities for me, and
Yep.
like I never would have done Epic WAN, I never would have gotten the opportunity I had, and I think that was a big thing about that, of just my first time being on camera speaking to that many people. There was
Yep.
definitely that, so like just anxiety behind it, and the point where I refused to have the stream open. I
Yep.
refused to have the Twitch open, so like, I'm gonna just act like me and McCready are just talking with each other.
Yep.
And I think at the time, like, as as cringy as it would sound, or as how I'm gonna throw myself under the bus here, it was, I think some of the casters that I kind of looked up to would have been like Des, yourself, and some other university casters. And I think, yeah, because I remember I jumped into the production call with you, McCready, Delta, and the
Yep.
Observer, and I kind of just sat there and I was like, fuck.
I think I actually want to touch on something that you
Mm.
mentioned there, which was that you closed
Mm.
the chat. Now, I fully understand that, and I think that would be one bit of advice that I'd give to anyone. Don't have chat open. And that is because not only will you not be focused on your cast, you're focused on what other people are thinking of you.
Mm.
Like when you're reading chat, why do you read chat? It's because you're wanting to see what people are saying, right? You're wanting to see
Mm.
what's being said in chat. And unfortunately, the sad reality of being online, you're going to get some shitty comments. Like, no matter how good you are, no matter how you cast, you're always going to get some people out there that are going to have incredibly hurtful, divisive comments, and as a caster, it will affect you. Even if you don't, say it, you know that it's going to subconsciously affect you. It's going to make you feel in a certain way, whether it makes you, sad or upset or frustrated. And I think being able to just keep yourself balanced and kind of neutral to all of that, it can be incredibly hard. One of the best things you can do about that, just close chat. Just don't deal with it. Look at chat later on. If and I do it myself, where I don't have chat open until either the stream is finished or if we're on a break. And even then, on a break, I try not to do it because I just focus on the task at hand. And that's one of the biggest kind of pieces of advice that I've always had is don't read chat. It's not worth it. Focus on what you're doing first. Chat can follow afterwards.
A question from chat from Danielle what would be the best and worst part of your job?
Daniele, buonasera. He's Italian. I like him. The best part about my job would be the experience of it. Being able to sit down, with, usually the co-caster that I love and adore. Being able to sit here and have a back and forth between us whilst we're watching a game that I'm incredibly passionate about, watching some players and some teams that I'm fairly familiar with. And it's just such a surreal experience. And it's such a high, when you're watching these teams and you can feel the energy coursing between yourself and your co-caster. It feels amazing, right? And you just feel like you're on top of the world. Seeing some of these teams and people that you admire and you really respect for the time and the effort that they put into their games, it's an incredible feeling. Yeah. For, I guess, the worst part of the job, I would actually say, and this is a personal thing for me, is I think kind of the part of the anxiety for it as well. Like, it does kind of get a little bit tiring. I mean, I'm casting UKIN 2 tomorrow, and that's something that we're going to touch on later on. But for me, I've spent all of this week so far prepping for that. So that is making sure that I've looked over previous history for the teams, I've done, I've watched over all of the matches from Tuesday night. And I know that I'm not going to sleep well until after the cast is over. Now, a little bit of apprehension is good. Maybe if I could have a little bit less, God, that'd be nice. I'd appreciate that. But I doubt that. So I think for me, that's probably the worst bit about it, is just having that kind of anxiety sometimes where, you have no reason to be nervous. I've got no reason to be anxious about this, but it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me alert. And yeah, I guess I shouldn't complain about it too much.
And another one from Danielle would be, earlier, but a lot earlier on the cast, I kind of missed it. Is there a cast that you take as an example, who inspires you?
Is there a caster that inspires me? Yes, all of them. And that's probably about as honest as I can be with that. Is regardless of whether I like or dislike a caster personally, I can't help but admire and respect a lot of the casters that work within Siege, simply because of their work ethic. The time and dedication that they put into their casts is something that genuinely cannot be taken away from them. You see the experience and the knowledge that people like Jess have, and they bring it in perfectly, and you combine that with kind of the fluidity of conversations with Dez and Dezichu. It's a superb combination. You look over to LATAM, and the English broadcast, you've got people like Asapire and Jackie who work together flawlessly. You listen to them, and you can't help but feel the positive energy that's going between the two of them. The conversations and the discussions that they have, every now and then they're throwing in the good old kind of English slang in there, and it just feels good, right? When you're listening to them, even during like tech rehosts, you're sitting there and you're listening to Jackie going off on one of his tangents, and it's entertaining, and you can tell that they love what they're doing. And I think we are incredibly lucky in Siege to be represented by people, like all of these casters. They are genuinely beacons of hope and positivity within our community. And I know that sounds rather dramatic, so apologies about that, but it really is true.
I mean, like you were saying about the LATAM broadcast, and it's something that we've also touched upon with the British people we've had on here. It's the British scene, like the banter, just
UK massive.
the chemistry just between all of the UK players, the casters, and anyone just in that kind of profession is. Yeah, it doesn't matter kind of where you're at, and tier 4 being especially like that. It's just the chemistry that a lot of people have just on impact.
I think that is partly one of the things that's so charming about the UK scene is, for better or worse, everyone is fairly open and brutally honest about it. Like, you look at the UK scene and they're just people.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you have a couple of personalities in there, but for the most part, you know, from tier 1 to tier 4, people are the exact same.
Yeah.
They're just normal human beings. They've got their own lives, their own goals, you know, they've got their own dreams, and they've got their own lives, and they're very open and honest about it. You can tell with the banter between a lot of the players that a lot of them are still friends at the end of the day. They are going in for some competitive matches, but they treat each other, you know, the exact same, you know, and I think that's something that the UK scene has over a lot of other scenes. Look at GSA with Germany. It doesn't really have the same feel. Look at France as an example. Our community doesn't have the same feel. Don't get me wrong, they've got some great competitive teams and players, but they don't have that community feel nearly as much as the UK scene does. And I think, to be blunt, one of the reasons that is because UK scene is just a couple of people. You know, it's a group of friends. Like, I think the only communities that really have that, from my experience, and I am biased here, would be the Benelux community and the UK scene.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to, and I think it was another point we talked about, was it's the different vibes that we would kind of get from, for example, if you took the Invitational any year of the Invitational, and if you moved it to a major here, and to think about how that happened with League and the COD Championships, how different just the atmosphere is here.
I think we're very lucky with the Invitational and the way it is right now, and how it brings together the community. And you see with the amount of people that come from so many different regions, like LATAM, you get a lot of Brazilian fans going over to support teams like Team Liquid, like NIP. A lot of Brits going over, you know, all the way over to Canada for a week to spend time with the community, and it really is kind of the focal point, and it's kind of the center point as well for the community. It's something that we all kind of focus on for that 1 week. It is so much of our talent, and our community is, you know, engaged with that, whether it be online through social media such as Twitter, Instagram, you know, on Twitch, you know, watching it live, at the, you know, the event itself. It's something that we all care about, and I think we would generally struggle to find people that were massively involved in, you know, Siege Esports that didn't have an interest in the Sixth Invitational.
Yeah. Another one from
Daniele
is if it's not too private, since casting is a very new job, what does your family and friends think about it, and do they support you with it?
Well, at first they were concerned that I didn't have a proper job, until my mum actually started watching some of my casts, and she went, "Oh shit, you're on TV."
I mean, wasn't the Scottish
Esports Scotland was on BBC? One of my casts, actually, correction, 2 of my casts earlier this year were broadcast live on TV on BBC Scotland and BBC Sport.
Yeah.
Which, it was kind of tough to explain it to my mum, who's, you know, a little bit older.
Yeah.
Doesn't really get the whole esports thing, but she's supportive of it. My sister hates it because, ironically enough, one of the students that she used to teach, because she works at university, One of her old students is a fan of my cast. So every time my sister was at university, she always used to get, how's Fraser doing? What's he up to? Is he casting today? And she hated it. She hated it. Which I always find that kind of funny. But overall, I think my family's been fairly supportive of it. They've recognized this is what I want to do. Even if they don't understand it fully,
Yeah.
they'll take it. Like, at the end of the day, I look at it like I'm gonna be doing it regardless of whether or not I had the support of my family or not.
Yeah.
It just means a lot that they do support it. And hey, like, it's kind of hard to explain. It's like it's the kind of thing that you wouldn't like to go through security at an airport and they ask, "What do you do for work?" Oh, yeah, you see, I sit in front of a camera on the internet. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one to explain. But
Well,
I don't know about you. I mean, how about yourself, Peak? Like, how would you explain what you do? Kind of with online. How would you explain what you do?
it's kind of the thing that I was going to touch on after what you just said.
Yeah.
It's especially it's come more, I'd say, common, more respected in the past like five-ish years.
Yeah.
But if I were to describe it, I don't think there is a way, because if you're going from the casting point like side of
Yeah.
things, I can't say that I do that for a living as much as I wish that I could. But I don't think there's a way to describe it, because you can either say I sit in front of a camera on the internet, or I talk over video games, or I stream and it's like, or
So
other people watch me do it, and they just
the way I generally do it, if someone was to ask me, and I can actually tell you now because I had a haircut today, and I just explained, hey, I do statistics and analytics because I do. That's what I do in my free time. That's what I do on cast, is work based around statistics analytics. And the good thing about that is it seems boring as fuck, so people generally don't ask too many questions. As for other people, I think we are in kind of a stage where it's becoming more and more acceptable to say that you work within esports. People understand it a lot more. And even if they don't understand it, they're kind of aware enough to recognize it's a thing. You know, esports is a thing nowadays, and even if they don't watch it, everyone's heard of it at this point, So I think it's definitely getting bigger and better, and it's getting easier for a lot of people to support that and kind of support that kind of lifestyle,
Yeah, and it's really nice that we're at the point where it's not just the fact is people. So I would say 5 years ago, and people would just turn around and just go, "You're wasting your time," or it's like, "Why would you do that?" And it's become more of a thing, and I think a large credit of that comes from League in Korea, and it's the fact that just the size of worlds, just the sheer amount of just people, the funding, the stadiums, everything. And I think it kind of, because I feel like that originated, the big events was always in Asia, and when they started coming over into Europe, into the US, and that's where people started to really kind of get an idea about it, because it wasn't just like a regional thing. It started to become everything else.
I mean, the way I choose to look at it is, when I was younger, I had no idea that this would be an option. Like, it's still genuinely mad for me to kind of sit here and go, I don't have a full-time job anymore besides this. I used to work full-time. I used to do night shift stock work at Tesco for a living. All respect to Tesco, they're a great company. But fuck me, did I ever think that I'd be doing something like this? Like, I truly didn't believe that I would be smart enough to do something like this. But here I am. I'm now kind of moving down a career path that I never believed would be possible. And it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the influence that so many of my friends have had on me over the years. It's mad. Like, I have changed a lot, over the years. And when I compare myself to how I was last year, it's a world of difference. How am I going to be in a year's time? I don't know, but I want to be better. And at the end of the day, if I want that bad enough, I'm going to push myself to try and do that.
Yeah.
You know.
And I feel like that's where it's been. I'd say it's been a big year for you, especially in just the amount of
Yep.
time and dedication and that's what you kind of see. The people that have put the time and dedication into their cast, into the behind the scenes stuff, have made it quite a long way. And
Yeah. I mean, the if I look at how much I've done over this year, I'm just gonna quickly list off all of the things that I've casted. CCSW, I did season 1 for Europe. I did that as an analyst and as a caster. Esports Wales, Esports Scotland, Esports Cup of Nations, UK Prem qualifiers, Challenger League Season 11 qualifiers, Benelux Season 5 qualifiers, 14 out of 16 Benelux community events. So that is, for example, JBL Cup, Benelux Biweekly, Benelux Cup. On top of that, I did Red Bull Sphere Wars. What else? UCAN qualifiers, UCAN finals. We're actively doing UCAN 2 right now. I mean,
so I was just gonna try and get the audio back. There's always a few technical issues. What if I? Potentially through OBS.
Discord crashed out entirely, and I'm just sitting here like, okay, that's great.
All right, we should be back and good. Yeah, Discord crashed.
Yeah.
It has been a few hard days for Discord.
Yes, apologies about that one. But on the bright side, we're back. We're here, ready to go. Got some coffee. I'm ready to go.
Oh, what? I completely forgot what we were talking about at that point. My
We were talking about stuff.
stuff. Let's talk about behind the scenes more towards, because a big part of Siege is, Twitter, and something that a lot of people. No, I'm not going to go into the tough side of it, but it's the way in which what a lot of people admire is I feel like your tweet from, I think it was last week on Learning Siege, just absolutely just hammering back and finding your own kind of way to get on top of other people and just say you don't really care and make comedy out of a bad situation.
What I would say about it is, esports isn't a career, it's a lifestyle, which is good and it's bad. Good news, I've got like 2,000 followers on Twitter. Bad news, it's so fucking hard to respond to messages. Like, in the nicest way possible. Like, I am not a sociable person.
Mm.
Trying to keep on top of, on remembering to tweet things, remembering to try and stay relevant and Twitter conversations, discussions, Twitter threads, seeing everything that's going on like Instagram, on
Mm.
Twitch. On top of then also doing things like Discord,
Mm.
being a streamer, I try and stream, like 4 or 5 hours a day. And then, to be blunt, you then have to be active in half a dozen different. I think I'm in 74 Discords right now. Vast majority of them are different streamer Discords.
Mm.
And you just get to that stage where you just can't speak to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's just so exhausting. Now, I have the utmost respect for anyone that can manage that, but I think one thing that you will notice is that a lot of players and a lot of casters, to be blunt, don't really bother
Yeah.
anymore. Like, I think a lot of people have gone the right way about it, which is they're active with their own small community or their own small group of friends. They don't try and
Yeah.
expand it past that. Again, there's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think what they're doing is very smart, and I wish that I had done that, to be honest. Because if you are spending so much time, playing video games, casting, working competitively, your personal time is limited, and if you're trying to expand that or extend that out to things such as social media to make sure that you've got that kind of platform, you've got that base, you're gonna run out of time.
Yeah.
Like, you really are.
And I feel like that's that's a side of it not many people kind of get.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got their own little things to talk about or to be with. They've got their own group of friends, and and I feel like as much as I'll take this project into example. It was really hard to get in contact with some people, and because especially on Twitter, you've got that that message request thing.
Yeah.
And some people, it's just sometimes you don't want to check it because because the Siege community is incredibly toxic and God knows what you're having there. And then other times it's requests that you don't want to talk about or don't want to go through, and it's
the way. So if I was to take today as an example for me, I woke up at 9 a.m. I then went into town. I got a haircut. I came back at like 11, like about half 11, and then from 11 a.m. through to about now, or about an hour ago, I was doing VOD review. So I was reviewing multiple maps from the last Weekend 2 night. So there's 5 maps from that. We then spent time doing this, so that's probably about an hour and a half. I haven't even had food yet today, because I've simply been on my feet all day.
Yeah.
And I've been busy all day, because if I don't do the VOD review today, then I'm not gonna have time to do it. Don't get me wrong. It's like I want to do it because I want to make sure that my cast tomorrow is at the best standard that I can. So therefore, I'm going to do a VOD review. It's not like I choose to. It's I have to make sure that I do my job correctly. Because at the end of the day, you need to, because I'm getting paid for this. I'm getting paid to represent these players, these teams. I need to do it right. So yeah, we're going to be doing this for like an hour and a half, give or take. And then after that, I'll probably have about 20 minutes to get some food. And then after that, I need to pop out. I need to go and watch a team scrim. They've got 2-map scrim tonight. Once I finish doing that 2-map scrim, and reviewing that 2-map scrim, I'm then going to go back and finish up the Rainbow Six UK. I was hoping to stream today, but I'm simply not going to have enough time, which means I'm going to have to stream tomorrow for like 5 hours. And I'm just sitting here like, I don't know when I'm supposed to try and tweet after that. Or try and read messages after that, or hang out in a Discord call after that. Like, it's too much to do, not enough time.
Yeah, and
I would really respect anyone that is able to make that happen on top of having a personal life.
And I feel that's a lot of that that's the time that people don't expect people to put in. That's what I was talking about before, about like people. Some people generally think that casting is, I come home, sit down, and I'm just gonna talk over this game. But the amount of hours behind the scenes that actually really go into just such depth, just to make sure that you can do that to the best of your ability.
I mean, put it this way. Think about this, okay? If you are going to cast a team, all right, that's good. Okay, you sit down. What are you going to talk about? Right, like if you haven't done your research, you're not going to know whether the team is good or not on this map. You're not going to be able to make any insights towards operator bans. Maybe, for example, you're going to go out there and say, oh well, they banned out Montaigne. Montaigne's been banned out. That's not really going to affect anything. It's a strong pick, whatever. And then it turns out that the team they're playing against always plays dual Montaigne. So it's a massive thing, right? A massive, massive, massive target ban. And you missed out on that opportunity to expand upon that. You missed out on the opportunity to say, hey, this team has done their homework. They know that this team, generally is reliant on a Montaigne. So the fact they banned that out, I'm really worried about this team, right? Or looking at it saying, oh, well, they're playing on X map. Cool. For all you know, that could be either this team's best map or their worst map. Maybe they have a 7-time losing streak on it. They've lost it every single time they played it. But unless you've done your research into it, unless you actually know that, you don't know. If you go out there and say, it's this team's average, and it's something that I mentioned earlier on. If you go out there and say, oh, this team's, they're just playing ranked strats, whatever, because they're pulling off a really well executed rush strategy with, Ying, Lion, etc. Right? If you just go out there and say, oh, yeah, whatever, they're doing a ranked strat, you're doing them a disservice. You are doing them a disservice. Anyone that looks at them are going to think, oh, they're playing ranked strat? Okay, well, if that's what the caster says, I don't like this team anymore. But the team's done something that they have scrimmed and practiced, and this is something that they should be proud of. They should be torn down for it. This is something that you should celebrate. But if you're not, if you're not doing your research and if you're not looking at what the teams are doing, how are you going to know? Yeah,
and that's why the depth, that's why the VOD review, that's the behind the scenes analysis, just it changes so much. It changes your view, changes how other people see it, because it's, if you put that time in behind the scenes, it just makes you seem just to the public just a better caster in general.
I mean, I'm very biased because this is my own personal opinion about it, but I just look at it like I personally couldn't go out there and cast if I didn't feel like I had enough information to make honest assessments. Don't get me wrong, I'm never perfect. My my analysis can always get worked on and can always be tweaked on. But I personally would feel very uncomfortable going out there not having a clue what I'm talking about. I would feel very iffy about it. But again, that's one of the things about casting is there's no right and wrong way to do it. There's only what a lot of people do and what other people, like looking at what other people do and making a decision for yourself. Is this for me, or would I rather do it a different way? It's up to you. Like, again, never feel like you need to cast like someone else. I guess. I don't know. It's the same as anything. Like, just in life, you can't do the exact same thing that other people are doing because that's not going to fit you all the time. But it's about finding things that do fit you and do work with you and do support you and assist you in what you want to do, right?
Yeah, and it's standing out in the scene that is so saturated with people who want it all, and so you can't be copying casters at the very top, or you've got to be your own personality. You've got to bring something unique to the table, otherwise you're just not going to stand out. And I crashed. Asked the question of, do you prefer the casting or analytics side of your job?
Ooh, definitely analysis, but there's something that needs to be pointed out with that. When you are looking at an analyst, and specifically like a desk analyst, when do you see them being brought out? This question to you: when do you see a desk analyst?
You see before every game, or
Not every
within.
game. Not every game. Why is that? Where do you see what matches do you see a desk host for?
I would say just either, if not before every game, just beginning of a broadcast or within the cast themselves. Because usually you have your color caster being somewhat of an into analysis.
So the way it is right now with National League, you only get desk hosts for like majors. You get you get desk hosts for majors or tier 1, right? So things such as EUL has desks. They have actual dedicated desk hosts. Sorry, not desk hosts. Desk analysts, right? NAL has them. APAC North has them, and so on and so forth. With National League, you don't really have them as much, and if you do have them, it's usually for the Premier Division. For UKIN 2 right now, they're not running analyst desk. ESA, ACS, all of these smaller tier 4 scenes and leagues don't do analyst desk.
Yeah.
So the only real opportunity to do analyst desks is within right now is within national leagues. So you're very limited with that actually. And right now I can honestly only say that I've had I think 4 or 5 opportunities to do an actual analyst desk. One was for Clutch, which was a standalone Binox cast, and UKIN finals. Simply because in the vast majority of our other casts, we haven't done that. You don't get the opportunity for things like ACS or ESA. Like, you do get, you do get to do analysis as a caster, if you're doing color casting, but it's nowhere near to the same depth or complexity that you can go into as a dedicated kind of desk host, or I keep saying desk host, desk analyst. And I think that's a massive shame, but it's something that I hope to get into more in the future. With the way that EUL is right now, the casters and the analysts kind of need to do the same thing. They swap over and they rotate people, so the casters will take turns doing analyst desk. Whereas with NA, you see people that are doing dedicated analyst desks. I wish that I had more opportunities to work on an actual analyst desk and actually breaking down rounds and games, but for now, there's not really that kind of opportunity. And it's a shame, because if I was going to like UKIN 1 or UKIN 2, I would want to be able to bring in that analytical insight, and unfortunately, there just really isn't a market for that right now.
Yeah, and it's a shame, but it's what I feel like people need to. You can't just can't jump all the way up to the top, and that's the same thing with any career. Is that you got to work your way up, and of all people, I'm sure you can agree with that. And you've got to do bit by bit, work your way up, even somewhat slowly. But it's happened to some. Take the EUL cast, for example. I mean, you originally had Kix, Intero, Milosh, and Emzo, and then it changed, because then you had the addition of Jess, Dez, and a bunch of others, and you have just a massive team which able to rotate.
What I would say for that, and again, I'm not going to call anyone out because I don't think that's fair, and I don't think I have the right to do that. When you look at the talent involved within the current EUL lineup, I mean, Hap. Let's take Hap as an example here. Casted Benelux League multiple seasons, cast Challenger League multiple seasons. Fluke casted multiple Challenger League and UK Prime seasons. Jess used to coach for Penta. And has worked at numerous analyst desks. In addition to also casting CSGO professionally, she's done multiple events for CSGO in her time. You look at Dez, casted out multiple, multiple UK Prem seasons, in addition to Challenger League seasons, in addition to majors and also Invitational, 6 Invitational. I don't feel like there is anybody that is currently doing EUL right now that doesn't have a reason for
Yeah.
being there. And I don't think that I personally feel like everyone involved with an EUL right now deserves to be there.
Oh, yes.
For whatever reason, and I don't think that I'm in a position that I could ever criticize that. You know, because at the end of the day, I'm not involved with any EUL. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know what decisions are made or why certain people cast with who. I think right now it works. You look at the chemistry that some of them have between, you know, Hap and Fluke. They casted together for OJ Pitt and some of the minors. In addition to Challenger League, they've been working together for years. You look at, you know, Dez and Jess. The chemistry is unparalleled.
Yeah.
It really is. The conversations, discussions between Dev Martyr and Geo are superb, and you can tell the analytical insight of somebody like Dev Martyr mixed in with the color and character of Geo is superb. The knowledge that Geo brought in about the Korean teams during the APAC North. There was not a single caster that had more knowledge and more insight about the Korean teams than Geo. Nobody. All right. And it was amazing to see that kind of experience and that kind of knowledge and the working knowledge of the Korean scene being brought out to full effect by Geo. It was superb, and I don't think she gets nearly enough credit for that. Coming in from competitive Overwatch over to Siege is a massive change of pace, and she has kind of developed and expanded on her abilities massively over the last year. If you were to take Geo and put her into this position from a year ago, it's a massive difference, and I think she doesn't get nearly enough credit for that. And on top of that, a lot of the hate and harassment that you know a lot of these casters are getting, I feel like it is entirely unfounded. I think that it's laughable that a lot of people go out there and actively shit talk casters, saying, "Oh, I can do a better job." Fuck off, you can. A lot of these people that sit there and make snide remarks and comments about casters would fucking shit themselves at the idea of talking to somebody other than their grandmother on the phone. Like, I don't think it's fair at all for people to make these comments about casters either not being prepared or not being ready. You have no idea for a lot of these people. Obviously, I'm not talking directly to you. I'm just, you know, in general, I mean here. A lot of people don't have any clue about this. I mean, and yourself here, Peak, you're a caster, and I'm sure that you've experienced a lot of that yourselves, where people are being very hurtful about it, and it's just not fair for anybody, is it?
Yeah, and I feel like that's what I was gonna branch into before, like when the EUL cast has changed. It's even like you were talking with Gia, how much insight she brought in about the APAC teams. That was, I think that was their first time being properly on that main broadcast with a proper team and having just instant, just like they were never, like they were always there with the EU teams, and it allows them to branch so much further in. And I think anyone can agree that's watched APAC and EU, the change in APAC, and it with the being on the main channel with the same EU cast that EU loves and knows so much. It's great, and every caster not messes up, slips up one way or another in their career. Everyone does. You get an and an R every so often when something gets you by surprise, and it's the little slip ups that should go unnoticed. That it's something so minor, then everyone goes, I could do that with my headset mic and no camera, and it's like I could do 10 times better job. And it's like, would you like to spend 8 to 10 hours a day looking through VODs, or would you prefer?
People think that it's all kind of sunshine and rainbows, and that all you're doing is you're going on there, you're making a couple of jokes, and you're able to cast perfectly. No, it takes time. The amount of work that people put in to improve and expand is insane. But again, something I wanna go back to there, and you mentioned it, brilliantly, which was the legitimacy that a lot of these APAC North teams are now getting
Yeah.
because they're being casted by experienced individuals and well-known kind of casters, and with the team that we've got for EOL right now, the knowledge that they're able to bring in, combined with the fact that they bring it in seamlessly. It's exactly as you
Yeah.
said. It's like they were never new. It's like they've always been here. Um, I think it's a great example of what our talent is capable of, and I'm sure that given more time, that's only going to continue to improve. And I think we've got a lot to look
Mm.
forward to with the future, don't we?
Yeah. And it's gonna be great, and more divisions need that. And because you of
Yep.
course you've got the new MENA region with APAC South,
Yep.
and if that's good, I feel so excited because my family lives out in New Delhi, and
Yep.
one day we had I want to say I I want to say Acer. Oh no, actually, have it rather Lenovo. It was a Lenovo event, the Rise of Legion, and
Yep.
it was a LAN for Siege. And I went and I went and had a look. I went and just to see what it would be like,
Mm-hmm.
and it was lovely. I went to go have a look, sit down, and they were all playing on. I I think 12-inch laptop is pushing it for
Yep.
how big they were playing on, and being expected to play at that level, but still getting
Yeah.
that, and then seeing that difference to the the amount of exposure they're getting now. I mean,
Yep.
LATAM being the changes they have, the just a dedicated caster team on the main channel. Same with APAC, same with NA, same with EU, and it's
Yep.
all the regions being brought together by casters who put that work in. And like I said, going back to APAC, the reason why we felt like they were always there was because of the effort that the casters put in, and
Mm-hmm.
having that knowledge, having that just that insight about the teams, about their past history. It's given the same treatment to the EU teams, and that's, I feel like, one of the big reasons why they're respected just as much.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as you were saying with
Mm.
MENA, I believe we had our first major kind of competition with
Mm.
them, which was, I believe it was the CCS organized Then But Not Out. I could
Mm.
be wrong about that. And we had our first MENA teams competing in that competition that were being introduced to kind of Western audiences, and it was amazing to see how differently they played compared to us. Obviously, with these different regions, you generally don't see a lot of kind of um, interaction between them. You're not gonna go scrim against a
Mm.
LATAM team as an example due to the ping. Um, so one of the few times that LATAM, APAC teams get to play against EU or NA teams, will be at things such as LAN events.
Mm.
Look at Six Invitational. Fnatic, as an example, a well-known, APAC team. Last Invitational, they spent 1 month together in London,
Mm.
boot camped in London, in order to scrim against EU teams, because EU teams play so differently than compared to APAC teams,
Mm.
and it gave them a massive edge being able to scrim against these partners, to get used to it before the invitational started. When you're looking at how a lot of these MENA teams play, it's superb. They've got so much potential locked away, and I'm very excited for the future because I know for a fact that these teams have a lot to show us, and I think it's looking very bright for their kind of competitive future. I mean, how do you feel about that, Pete? Do you feel like we're going to be seeing more MENA teams getting involved within the higher echelons of kind of CG sports?
I mean, I would love to, absolutely, because I
Yeah.
know there's so much untapped potential. And again, I think the main issue with that is within the MENA region, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be like an EU team scrimming against a LATAM team. just
Yeah.
because of that ping. And I think when because I had to take my PC out there when I jumped over there last summer, and the lowest ping I had was 110 on any
Yep.
server, because this time where you could still change them. And
Yep.
I think even though at that LAN event they were playing on small screens, but it's that connection difference. They were playing on LAN for like some of their first times,
Mm-hmm.
and it's such a difference. And I think one of the big steps into making meta a legitimate region, and APAC South a legitimate region to compete with APAC North, EU, LATAM, NA, is that one of the steps towards that would be getting their own servers. And I know that's so easy to say, and I know there's a lot of back end stuff to deal with that, because they've been saying it for years and they've wanted to. But they've done so well with the little support they have, and allowing this new APAC South region just to compete is given people opportunities, has given them some form of legitimate representation, and putting them in with APAC North in a completely different system that EU, LATAM, or NA have is brilliant. And I feel like I feel like when a LAN happens again, when the MENA and APAC South regions come to a stage, I don't think a lot of teams will be ready.
I'm excited for that. Just hands down, I think looking at how a lot of these MENA teams have played, and the few times that we have seen them, and the few instances that we have seen them competing, kind of in the mainstream audiences, I think they've got a lot of potential. And seeing how they're going to perform against some of these other regions, I think there's so much untapped potential there. So I'm really hoping that we can continue to kind of expand and improve on the infrastructure in these regions to try and support them and help develop, a budding grassroots scene. And something that we actually have here, and something that You Can Too does perfectly, is supporting some of these lower league teams and some of these players who might not have necessarily had the opportunity to compete at a national league level, giving them somewhere that they can compete and learn and develop their careers and their futures within esports, I think is massive. And I think Ubisoft deserves a lot of prop and a lot of praise for exactly that, for giving them the opportunity to flourish within the UK.
And it's great that they can experience that. It's absolutely great. And like, again, I'm going to refer to what we were talking about before the stream started, and about people who I've been speaking to, just about like the Newell and NSC teams.
Yep.
Tier 1 teams would turn away. Like if a tier 4 team went up to, for example, let's say G2 versus Pro, Navi, Vitality, any of those, if a tier 4 team went up to them and was like, scrims, you probably would have got a swift no, because it wouldn't be worth their time. And talking to some of the people that are now in Ukinto, who it's just such a change in, you're no longer scrimming against a team that have the strats but don't have the skill. Even if you get pummeled 12-0 in like the 6-6 scrims, you learn something. And that's the great thing. You're given that experience, given that next level in your career that you learn from. And you've got to get hit down a few times in order to succeed, because you can't just keep winning and expect to learn something. Because that loss after loss after loss, even in a scrim, like, why did we lose this round? And after that, it gives you that next level of experience.
Now, you mentioned something there, which was getting pummeled in a scrim.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Playing against some of these, these higher tier teams, such as, as you mentioned, some of these tier 1 scrim partners, that's a good thing, because you learn a hell of a lot more from your mistakes than you will from constantly winning. If you're constantly winning against your scrim partners, you need to get better ones. You need to get ones that are going to be tougher, that force your team to concentrate and focus a lot more, because eventually you're going to start getting lax. You're going to fall into these habits and routines, and habits, routines are good. in moderate doses. You know, remembering to put your drones in the same place, remembering to utilize utility in the same place. You know, if you're constantly winning round after round after round, eventually you're going to stop giving up with that. You're going to say, don't need to worry about flank drones, don't need to throw flashbangs in, and then you're going to start making mistakes.
Yeah.
Roamers are going to start coming up behind you and they're going to get kills. You're going to start losing frag grenades to Jaeger ADSs or Romai magnets because you're not bothering to burn out ADS. You know, you're going to start making these fuck ups if you aren't concentrating. And learning from these higher tier teams, yes, you're going to get your ass kicked, but you're going to learn a lot more through that than you are if you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again.
And that's, I feel like, the brilliance of Yukin too, because it's not been, I think it's the biggest Div 2 that's been publicized, because although that comes with a hefty dose of just, you know, the UK massive team being, everyone's so close, and a lot, like quite a few of them being university students who have, and I can say that community is incredibly close. And it's something that it's allowing that and giving them the same opportunities as Div 1 teams. They're getting the same publicity that like M&M were getting, Na'Vi were getting when their UK Div 1 was going on. And it's something that I feel like would be such a confidence boost for those teams.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, looking at, just quickly browsing out on Wikipedia as well, from what I can remember, there's only 2 to 3 national leagues right now that actively have 2 leagues. So that would be UK. We've got the UK and Ireland Nationals, that's Division 1 and Division 2. Premier Division is Division 1, that's the higher tier. The lowest 2 teams at the end of the season will get automatically relegated down into Division 2, and the top 2 teams from Division 2 will then get promoted up, which is good. Same as GSA. GSA has the first league, which is GSA, and then they've got the second league, which is the Ascension League. And then I believe that the French also do theirs. I believe it's the French league, and then they've also got Challengers, which is like the lower league that will go kind of below that, and then they kind of, you know, relegate and get promoted, vice versa. So overall, it gives them a lot of opportunities. But with GSA, Ascension League, it's been around for a while, but it doesn't really get promoted all that much in comparison to UK 2. We've made a very big deal about that this is very important. This is a major turning point for UK, because this is such a massive kind of investment into the scene, from the budget, from the casters, from the production values involved. It's a lot, you know. With UK 2, we brought on, you know, an entirely new production team for it. They've got an entirely new set of casters for it. We've got 6 casters in total involved with UK 2. Which, to be blunt, is more than some other national leagues for their main league. What does that tell you about how much Ubisoft cares about the UK?
Yeah.
Like, it says a lot.
It's certainly a great thing, and I feel like it will really help push this region forwards, because this region has so much untapped potential. If you look, let's take Season Challenger League. You had M&M make it into Challenger League, into the new system. Then you had Koana absolutely crush it through the 10th place qualifying bracket. And then both teams are now just making their way up top, and they're top 2. I think M&M is first, automatically going up. And then Koana is challenging, I want to say Rogue, but I'm not sure.
I honestly can't tell you. I'm not too aware on that. I know for a fact that M&M are first place right now, which means regardless of what happens, we're going to have 2 UK teams participating in EUL.
Oh, it is Rogue in relegations.
So Kavana have a lot of potential. They genuinely have a chance at getting into EUL, which could potentially mean we have 3 EUL teams that are from the UK. That would be Na'Vi, that'd be M&M Gaming, and that would be Kavana Gaming. whether or not Kavana get there, I think that a lot of people in the UK are going to be supporting them for that because they are representative of the UK. These are all UK players, are people that we know and that we've seen and we've casted before, and people that we want to see succeed. I think it's great. Eminem, they put a hell of a shift in over this year to continuously improve and expand on what they are capable of doing, and to get to the stage that they're at right now deserves a lot of praise.
Yeah. And it is down to just what we saw in UK Season 1. Although it came with some matches which were less than favourable, but it also came with some absolute banger of matches. Take the finals. It ended 3-2 to Eminem to Na'Vi.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great show to watch. And just to see both UK teams smash their way through CL. Obviously, they had some downsides, but in the end, UK was on top, and it just shows the fact that there is so much potential here in the UK.
Agreed. Like, the fact that we've gotten to the stage where we are right now, that we are genuinely considering whether or not we'll have 3 UK teams in EUL at the end of the year, in comparison to last year when we had 1, Na'Vi. And at the time, at the start of this year, remember Doki was unfortunately benched. They brought in that fucking cunt, and now they are currently sitting, pretty comfortably in EUL right now. They are doing pretty well. I think Na'Vi are absolutely dominating right now, and I think they've still got a lot of potential, and I think they're going to continue to kind of get better over time. We've seen Eminem, do the exact same. I think we've got a very bright future ahead for the UK.
Yeah, and it's certainly be something that is gonna be so nice to see. It will come down to what we see in February, after whatever's happening with the invitationals happens, and when the next season of EUL starts, let's hope for that triple threat of the UK, because I cannot wait to see Kawana and Eminem in EUL. If they make it in, EUL is going to be so good to watch.
I'm just excited.
And chat's going to be even more toxic. I cannot want that
anymore. That's going to be great. Come on, we all know it's going to be absolutely great. We can get Eminem in there. Think about how much that is going to support the UK scene in terms of the investment that we're going to start getting. It's going to be insane. But we just need to focus on the here and now right now, which is UKIN 2.
Yes.
Okay, let's get Division 2 out of the way. Let's absolutely smash it with UK Prem. Let's see what happens for the future. I think we're going to have a great time, Peak.
Yeah.
Just you wait.
It's going to be certainly great. And is there anything else you want to touch on or talk about?
Not too much. What have you got planned for dinner?
I really haven't decided that far yet. I've got quite a bit of work to do after this.
Speak for yourself. I'm ordering some food. I don't know what I'm getting. Pizza.
Oh.
I think I'm gonna get some pizza. I think that's what does chat think? Okay, I want opinions in chat right now. Okay, I gotta take over for a second here. I want some opinions here in chat. Are we gonna order some pizza or are we gonna get some McDonald's? Again, I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm just, hungry. You guys have any opinions? Let me know in chat. Let me know what you guys are thinking, because at the end of the day, what better way of deciding than through taking over a Twitch chat? So we're looking at getting a spicy Italian KFC, bro. Don't know about that one. Cat, apologies. We don't actually have a KFC over here anymore. We used to, but it got closed down years ago. Anyways, it's terrible.
I mean, everyone's going with pizza and Italian.
Who doesn't like a big thick Italian in your mouth? I do. I don't mean it like that. But anyway.
All right. Well, I mean, best of luck tomorrow for the UKIN Division 2 cast. We wish you all the best of luck for that. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming on today. It was really great. It was our longest and one of the most enjoyable industry insights that we have had this week. Thank you so much for joining us, Fraser.
No worries.
And thanks so much. And we will see you guys tomorrow, where we're going to have Affy in at 5 p.m. We have an Pro League analyst. And yeah, it's going to be another great insight to see. And we will see you guys tomorrow.